After the opening, the real battle begins, the middle game, and here's the truth, most players lose control right here, but not you, because today I'm giving you guys 5 game-changing middle game rules to help you gain the edge and start winning more games. Smash that like button if you're ready, let's dive in. Middle game rule number 1, when you guys are castled on the opposite side of the board to your opponent, launch a Pawnstorm attack. This is what it could look like and how brutal it could be. We're going to start the move h4 and they're going to play a move such as b6. Of course they could play any move, but this is just a nice little example. And now we can continue the Pawnstorm with the move g4, supported by the pawn on f3, which is very important. Now we're threatening moves such as g5 and especially h5, which you're going to see right now, trying to break into the black king's position. But black can always do something of their own on the queen side with a move such as c5, offering a trade of pawns and perhaps trying to open up our side of the board, but simply ignore it and we'll capture on g6 just like so. And when they're forced to capture back with the f pawn, we now have this open diagonal for our bishop. Bishop c4 check, breaking in and opening up the path for our bishop. And the black king is forced to h8, where we can now play the awesome bishop h6, forcing a trade of bishops, and when they capture, we simply capture back, and as you can see here, we are totally winning with a +4 position. Of course, black could have done many different moves, but this is just a lovely example to showcase how brutal Pawnstorm attacks can be. Middle game rule number 2, look out for knight outposts as much as possible. A knight outpost is a square in your opponent's territory where a knight is securely placed and cannot easily be attacked by enemy pawns, making it very strong and sometimes even overpowered. Using this information, we can play the beautiful move knight e5, sticking our knight into a very strong outpost, which is supported by 2 pawns, and each of these pawns are supported by other pieces as well, making this knight outpost extremely secure and therefore very powerful. And sometimes you can even get positions like this, where you have 2 knight outposts, each of which are extremely strong and supported by only one singular pawn. In this example, our knights are covering a total of 14 squares, 8 each, and 2 of the squares are shared, showing how important one pawn can be for the activity of both of your knights. Knight outposts are one of the most important things in chess, so definitely do not overlook them. They are so powerful and so important. Now time for rule number 3. For middle game rule number 3, we're going to have a little game of would you rather. Would you rather play this endgame from white's perspective or black's perspective? I'll give you guys a second to pause the video, then comment your answers. If you guys said from the black perspective, unlucky, because white was the right answer. Well done if you got it. The reason this is because white's pawn structure is so much superior than black's. There are no doubled pawns and we have only one isolated pawn, which in the future could actually become an outside pass pawn anyway, whereas black's pawn structure is terrible. Every single pawn is isolated and most are either doubled or even tripled, which is even worse, leading us to having massive advantage in the endgame. What I'm trying to say here is that in the middle game, if you look after your pawn structure and try to make it as healthy and strong as possible, you will reach the end game with a much better pawn structure than your opponent. Now, I'm going to show you guys a quick demo on how you can destroy your opponent's pawn structure at certain points of the middle game, so then you can get a lovely pawn structure and have an advantage going into the end game. Let's get into it. The demo actually arises from one of my favourite openings called the English opening, and this is one of the variations. However, we're not here for the opening, I'm just here to show you how you can destroy your opponent's pawn structure. Here, black has just castled their king, and you may think, well, castling is also a good move for white. Well, turns out you are 100% correct, but before you do that, you can also just capture this knight on c6 because black is forced to capture back, and as you can see here, they now have double isolated pawns along with one isolated pawn on the a file, and after this you can castle just like you did before, but now the difference is you got a much better pawn structure, which is extremely important for the following middle game and the end game, because now boom, you've got to target the c6 pawn and all of a sudden black has defended and you have the upper hand. Middle game rule number 4 is to always look for ways to trade pieces when up in material. Think of it like this, the more pieces there are on the board, the more complex the position is and the less chance you have of finding a way to win a game quickly, even if you have more pieces. But when you cut the amount of pieces on the board from this to this, you can see that all of a sudden there is a clear path to victory. Let me show you an example. For example, you could be playing in white for this endgame, and of course you're totally winning because you're just up a rook, but it could be a little bit more difficult for you to win than if there were less pieces on the board. For example, if black was to play a move such as knight f6, attacking your rook on the g8 square, you could simply play a move such as knight d5 check, attacking the king on c7 whilst also threatening the knight on f6. Now of course, if the king just moves out of check, you trade knights, and now look, this position is way easier to win than before. And instead, if they simply capture your knight, well fine, it's defended by a rook, and then again you're up a rook, and this position is way easier to win because the knights are off the board. Finally, tip number 5 is to always look for sacrifices to open up your opponent's position. Whether it be with your knights, bishops, rooks, or even your queens, chess at the end of the day is all about delivering checkmate. And checkmate is a lot easier to accomplish when your opponent's position is torn open by your sacrifices. Arguably, one of the most famous sacrifices is called the Greek gift. Let me show you how incredible it can be. The way a Greek gift sacrifice works is when you have a bishop on d3 eyeing the pawn on h7, which is only defended by the king. Also, you need a knight ready to jump to g5, which will be defended by your bishop, and also a queen ready to come to either d3 or h5, just like so. Let me show you. In this position, we're going to play bishop takes h7, a Greek gift sacrifice, and the best move for black here is to accept the sacrifice, because after this we have knight g5 check supported by the bishop on the c1 square, and after this the best move for black is to drop back to the g8 square, where we can now play our idea all along, queen h5, threatening a checkmate on the h7 square. Now, black's best move is to actually just sacrifice their queen to stop checkmate. If they do that, great, you're up a queen and just go on and win the game. Now, they could have a couple of other options, such as you may think f6, well no, turns out the power of the Greek gift is that queen h7 is checkmate anyway, so instead you might think, well, rook e8 could also be a good move. Well, you are correct, but it's actually not, because we have queen takes f7, and after king h8 we have a full sequence just like this, which ultimately delivers checkmate. That's the video. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to destroy those like and subscribe buttons. Be sure to click the playlist links in the description for more videos. Bye bye.